Listen, enjoy.
Brand new podcast, Skills Talk, with me, your host, Robin Jackson. Welcome to the show. Now, this podcast is all about skills, learning and development, human resources, and the ever-evolving world of work. Now, those of you who probably listened to me on the other podcast, those of you who are listening to this podcast for the first time, I run a different podcast all about, it's called Cult Life. This is the second podcast that we'll be running, Skills Talk, and each week we will explore current and future trends in skills development and the learning and development sphere, and of course organizational principles in the real world. We also have a few interviews lined up with experts in their respective fields, in learning and development, human resources, etc. So we'll get much needed advice and intelligence from interesting people. So look out for that in the coming weeks. Now, the reason for this podcast is workplaces are becoming increasingly advanced and complex. The advancement of technology on a daily basis, information systems, and this has given rise to what Klaus Schwab describes in his book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution. Now, social media, digital fabrication, robotics, virtual reality, synthetic biology are all part of this revolution. We know, we see this, we hear this on a daily basis in newspapers, in the media, everybody talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and this fourth industrial revolution. So this requires a greater understanding of the operational aspects of technology on the part of companies and on the part of employees. But humans, us as humans in general, it'll hold us in good stead if we have a greater understanding of these technologies and the future. Now, the French writer Victor Hugo once said that no cause can succeed without first making education its ally. This definitely still holds true today. Companies can ill afford not to invest in upskilling staff. And the reason why is because new technologies and equipment are brought into the field to cope with the demands of an ever-changing and demanding customer base. And very often these machines cost millions and millions of dollars. And operating some of these machines requires skill. Now, I often make the comparison that you wouldn't put an unlicensed driver behind the wheel of a sports car priced at $1 million. So why are we putting untrained employees behind the control panel of $1 million machine? But not all skills can be learned in a university or college setting. And that is why companies should have internal training programs and strategies to give their employees the necessary skills they require on the job. Businesses often work with external training providers, of course, to facilitate programs and workshops to assist their employees to navigate the whole complex issue and to improve their skills. However, the organization has to firstly identify what those skills gaps are before embarking on any training and skills development program. And what I've often seen is that these gaps are not clearly defined, and training just becomes a tick box exercise without adding any real value to the organization and to the employees themselves. Now, in order for organizations to be effective, it needs to understand what skills are needed presently and what skills are needed in the future. And this is at every level of the organization. The areas where the biggest gaps are basic skills, technical skills, professional skills, management and leadership, emotional intelligence, and language and communication. Now, language and communication, I threw that in there because we are increasingly, our workforce is diverse, languages are diverse. We need to be able to communicate effectively and understand each other's language and communication techniques and to improve them. And we are not excluding our hard of hearing or disabled employees as well. Now, of course, all of this can be done with the help of individual development plans and performance plans. Now, we talk about skills gaps. Now, what are skills gaps? A skills gap can be defined as a significant gap between an organization's current capabilities and the skills it needs to achieve its goals. Now, this gap can be harmful to the organization because it stifles growth and it reduces competitiveness. It also impacts negatively on efficiencies and can lead to a strained working environment. Now, many organizations, with the intent to present educational opportunities for the employees, often waste money, time, and resources. And that's because they do not have a comprehensive plan or haven't adequately assessed their resources and what is actually needed for the business and what's needed to upskill their employees. So efforts are very often needlessly duplicated across the organizations without well-conceived educational plans which parallel the business and strategic goals of the organization. And that's important. Your upskilling and your educational and learning and development plans must parallel the business and strategic goals of your organization. Without such plans, companies waste resources and very often lose the competitive advantage. The next point is very important. Organizational buy-in must be created. You have to create organizational buy-in when you embark on a training program. And I'm going to take world-class manufacturing as an example. We will, in future episodes, we'll talk about world-class manufacturing and the TPM strategy that a lot of companies embark on, the whole lean manufacturing process. But very often companies introduce this without getting the actual buy-in from employees. And that's the important thing. You have to consult with and interview senior managers and other leaders of the organization first, and also get your employee representatives and union officials to be part of the process. The purpose of these interviews is, of course, to determine the future scope and the strategic positioning of the organization. Clarifying strategic goals ensures that the education and the training provided to your employees will be relevant. And of course, not just that tick box exercise that we spoke about. It's also important that you set up a training committee within your organization, which will assist in driving the process. And very often this training committee is just one that exists on paper. Furthermore, training is required to cover essential work-related skills, techniques, and knowledge. The reason for this is that in terms of training and development, what's good for people is good for the organization in which they work. What's good for people's development is good for the organizational performance. It's good for the quality, your product's quality. It's good for customer satisfaction. It's good for effective management and control. And therefore, it's good for the profits and the bottom line. If an organization approaches training and development from this standpoint, they will inevitably foster people who will perform well and, of course, progress within the organization. So, training and career development are vital in any company or organization that aims at progressing. By addressing employee weaknesses and improving worker performance, companies will stimulate creative thinking and improve decision making. And I'm going to list 5 major benefits of education and training in an organization. And they are: number 1, training and development helps in optimizing the utilization of human resources. Number 2, it helps in increasing the productivity of employees. Number 3, it helps in creating a better corporate image. Number 4, helps in inculcating the sense of teamwork, team spirit, and inter-team collaborations. And number 5, it helps in improving the health and safety organization as a whole. Now, approaches to education and training varies from organization to organization. The traditional approach, and many of you will probably relate to this, is usually reactionary, where training is driven by tactical skills in brick and mortar classroom settings, and usually at the random request of line managers or employees themselves. Learning organizations, on the other hand, employ a proactive approach. Now, this approach aligns learning activities with corporate business strategy. The active learning approach has trainees and learners and employees playing a leading role in learning by exploring issues and situational problems under the guidance of the facilitator. The trainees learn by asking thought-provoking questions, searching for answers, and interpreting various observations made during that process. The active learning approach has its lasting impact on learning, since it helps in long-term retention and finding better solutions in the challenging situations. Now, in today's fast-paced world, continuous learning is essential to success. Individuals need to learn to succeed both in life and at work. Companies need to ensure that the employees continue to learn, so they can keep up with, of course, the increased job demands, and so that the company can gain or maintain a competitive advantage. This, of course, will be beneficial to both parties. It's beneficial to the employee, and it's beneficial to the company and the business as a whole. So, that is the very first episode of Skills Talk. And I just want to thank you for joining me, for listening in. As I said, going forward, we will have some guests on the show joining me and talking more about the learning and development sphere, productivity, the manufacturing environment, how South Africa in particular is performing, and what are the trends in the rest of the world that we could look at and employ in our businesses, be it large or small. So look out in the coming weeks for for some very interesting interviews with thought leaders, with leaders in their field, in the human resource field, in the productivity and lean manufacturing field as well. So thanks for joining me. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Spreaker, on YouTube, on Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts, so that you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating as well on iTunes or any of the platforms, or simply just tell a friend about the show and help us out, and we'd just spread the word. We'd really appreciate that. So until next time, this is me, Robin Jackson, for Skills Talk.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.